independent study, I think about how completely grateful I am to have the opportunity to take something that I started, kind of nonchalantly as a teenager. I was 18 when I first started this. Had no idea what I was going to do with it. I loved these characters, and I knew I wanted to write something with them, but I didn't know how to go about doing it. And I don't think I ever would have finished without Professor Gutowski's help. So I am eternally grateful to have this opportunity. And I think that if anyone gets a chance, they should definitely take it. So I wrote a novel, and a rough draft of a novel, and I'm going to read you guys the first couple of pages of it. So each chapter is a month, so this is September. And I'm a little sick, so bear with me. Jack Stoddard kept his hands stuffed in his pockets as he walked along the sidewalks, trying to stay out of everyone's way. He looked up from the ground to observe his surroundings every now and again. The sweet smell of gasoline invaded his nostrils as he strode past a mechanic shop. His dark brown eyes searched for a help wanted sign. Nothing. He sighed and kept walking. It was his second day in Brooklyn, and he loved everything about it. He loved the way that sometimes one couldn't tell the difference between a storefront and an apartment building. He loved the bunches of 20-something guys dressed in ironic t-shirts and tight jeans cuffed at the bottom, trying to impress girls with summer dresses, belted around the waist and crocheted hats as they rode past on vintage-looking bicycles and long skateboards. He loved the nail polish remover smell of dry cleaners with their doors wide open, the intricate and stunning vandalism on the sides of art galleries that were more beautiful than the paintings inside. A coffee house on every corner, a record store on every block. College students strode past him with messenger bags and oversized headphones, walking like they had places to be and a limited amount of time to get there. Pale adolescent males with NWA caps and Public Enemy sweatshirts threw footballs around in parks while branding themselves with a nostalgia for something they never had. In Brooklyn, everyone could be anyone they wanted, and everyone wanted to be different. The song that was playing through Jack's headphones changed, and so did his mood. The lyrics circled around his brain and radiated. They sucked like a leech on his heart as a smiling mother, father, and child brushed by him. He turned the words over and over in his mind. I never want to go home because I haven't got one anymore. He casually wiped his finger underneath his eyes so strangers wouldn't see the droplets forming at the edges. Paying more attention to the voice in his ears than the people on the street, it wasn't long before Jack crashed into someone. The guy stopped in his tracks. He was dressed in a white short-sleeved button-down, faded jeans with what seemed to be a few natural rips, and a pair of worn-out combat boots. There was a plastic guitar case in his hand that had hit Jack's knee. His hair was dark. It stuck up all over except for the front, which went up and over to the side like a wave in the ocean. Jack wondered how he got his hair to do that. The stranger's eyes were almost as dark as his hair, and Jack immediately felt the need to tuck his tail between his legs and run. Shit, I'm so sorry, he gushed. For what, walking? The stranger took a few steps towards the building so they weren't in the middle of the sidewalk. He then plucked a box of Camels and a lighter from his pocket. Don't worry about it, I was going to stop for a cigarette anyway. Want one? No thanks, I don't smoke. I just want to say it again, I'm really sorry. I should have been paying more attention. It's just, I was listening to this song and I was in my own little... You're in Williamsburg, kid, the stranger interrupted. What does that mean? It means everyone's in their own little world. There's not a person on these streets that isn't completely consumed by their own self-inflated ego. You're surrounded by artists, he said. He then motioned to the guitar case in his hand. Myself included. I'm Johnny, by the way. He held out his hand. Jack Stoddard, nice to meet you. So, how long you been in Brooklyn? Johnny asked. 2 days, how'd you know? You've got this touristy look of wonder all over your face, he replied. He took a long drag of his cigarette. When you've lived here as long as I have, you can spot a newcomer anywhere. Where are you staying? This hotel over in Bushwick, the name of the place is weird, starts with a W or something, I don't know. All I know is I need to get a job quickly, or I'm going to run out of money. That's why I'm here. I'm checking out all the surrounding areas for a mechanic shop that's hiring. Johnny tossed the end of his cigarette into the street and sighed. Well, good luck, man. I hope something works out for you. Thanks. No problem. Oh, and try not to pummel any more strangers. They might not be as nice as me. Johnny stepped away from the wall and went on his way. Jack continued on his quest for employment once again. Hey, Jack! Jack stopped and turned around with a confused expression. Yeah? You interested in a good time? Johnny asked as he got closer. Jack hesitated, unsure of what Johnny was going to offer him. So far, he'd destroyed all of Jack's expectations. He looked tough, but once he started to talk, Jack was willing to bet he wouldn't hurt a fly. He wondered if he was one of those really intense vegetarians. He seemed like the kind of guy who was so gentle he didn't even eat meat. "Don't get all weird on me," Johnny said. "I mean like live music." Jack chuckled with relief. "Oh, sorry. Don't worry about it. Now that I think about it, it sounded very Catcher in the Rye." Jack gave Johnny a blank look. You know, the scene where the creepy guy offers Holden a hooker in the elevator? You know, in the novel? Jack didn't show any sign of comprehending what Johnny was talking about. "Okay, never mind. I'm in a band and we're playing a gig tonight. Do you want to go?" "Yeah, sure." Johnny pulled a flyer out of his back pocket and handed it to Jack. "That has the address on it. I'll keep an eye out for you." "Thanks." "No problem. See you around, Caulfield." Johnny tossed the goodbye over his shoulder like a paper ball at a garbage can and was halfway down the block in no time. Jack stood for a moment, trying to figure out if Johnny had forgotten his name or had just nicknamed him, and then looked down at the neon paper in his hand. A small smile spread across his face. With a band name like Johnny Crucifix and the Crown of Thorns, how could he not go? Jack wandered up to a brightly painted building. There was a crowd of people around his age, smoking cigarettes and talking about something political that he didn't quite comprehend. He checked the flyer for the 100th time. It was the correct address. A large bouncer at the door eyeballed him as he cautiously approached. "ID," the man grunted. Jack handed it over. The man read his license, and a small smile cracked between his lips. "Hand," he said as he gave the ID back. Jack did as he was told. The bouncer took a large black marker and wrote a capital X on the back of Jack's hand. He then demanded the other and repeated the process. "Go ahead, princess." He moved his large body so Jack could pass through. He cringed and walked inside. Jack had never been in a bar before. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, unsure of where to go. At the front, there was a large stage being set up by roadies. Directly across from the stage, at the back of the building, was the bar with lines of people waiting for their drinks. He was pretty sure Johnny was the kind of guy who stuck out in a crowd, but there was no sign of him. "You think you could get out of the doorway?" a female voice said as she pushed Jack out of the way. "Sorry," he mumbled. She said something in another language that Jack assumed was an obscenity. He started to apologize again, but the woman was already in the distance. All Jack could glimpse of her as she disappeared into the crowd was her wavy black hair. The unruly swirls of her hair reminded him of snakes, a modern-day Medusa. Jack made an internal vow not to make eye contact if he happened to see her again. On the far right of the room, he could see tables and chairs situated to face the stage. As he walked toward the section of tables, he heard Medusa's voice again. He looked around and spotted the snakes with their back to him. She was sitting at the head of a rectangle table. Opposite her was a cute blonde girl, and to that girl's right sat a curly-headed guy. There was an empty seat on either side of Medusa. Jack sat down at the table behind theirs. He was fairly certain that she didn't notice him. He watched the floor and listened to their conversation. "Oh, don't give me that. Fuck cops. I can't believe they arrested me when I was peacefully protesting. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's illegal to arrest me for doing something I have the First Amendment right to do. It's because I'm not like Casper over here." She pointed to the blonde. "What?" the blonde questioned. "I actually have a skin tone unlike you. They arrested me because I'm brown." She ran her hand through the serpentine waves of her hair. Jack noticed that everything about her was dark. Her skin was the color of coffee with only a splash of milk. Her hair and t-shirt were black, her jeans a very dark gray. "Kat, I don't think it was your skin color. I think it was because punching a nun doesn't qualify as peaceful protest," the guy with the curly hair told her. A slight smile played upon his face. "You punched a nun?" the blonde yelped. She had it coming. Jack looked up to see the dark one, Kat, grinning. "You can't just punch nuns," the girl said. "Hey, nuns are people too. They may think they're closer to God or whatever, but that doesn't mean they're above being punched when they're being a cunt." Jack bit his lip to keep from laughing. Her logic might be skewed, but it was definitely entertaining. "I can't believe you just used that word to describe a nun." The blonde looked absolutely stunned, although the male didn't seem bothered. Kat shrugged. "Look, it's not like she was an 80-year-old woman, all right? I don't go around assaulting the elderly. Although, on second thought, maybe I should. Some of them definitely deserve it. This nun was youngish." "What'd she say to you?" the blonde inquired. Jack got the feeling Kat was purposely trying to make her uncomfortable. "She told me I was going to hell." "Well," the male smiled, "let's be honest, Kat, aren't you?" "Oh, of course, but who the fuck is she to tell me that?" The male laughed while the blonde just shook her head. "Hey," he said with a grin, "you know how nuns are all married to God and whatnot? Do you think he's got good pillow talk?" He took a sip of his drink and spoke again in a deeper voice. Gee, sister, what a day today. I had to cause an earthquake in a third world country, make sure the world economy is still tanking, give 2 million people cancer, and prevent those silly fags from ruining the sanctity of marriage. You know, I think it might be time for another flood. What's Noah been doing lately? Let's pull that bastard up, get him building again. Oh, and make sure this time he goes, gays don't count in the 2x2 rule. Despite his best efforts, Jack couldn't keep from laughing. The sound of his chuckle caught Kat's attention, and she turned towards him quickly. Can I help you? Jack looked away. No, what the fuck are you laughing about? Nothing, I'm sorry, he stammered, terrified to make eye contact with her. Do you do anything but apologize? Jack looked up at the sound of a male voice and was relieved to see Johnny standing in front of him. Sorry. He paused. Apparently not. Johnny took a seat on one side of Kat. Come sit with us, Caulfield. I'm glad you came. He pointed to the only other open seat, which was of course on the other side of Kat. Jack switched to his new seat and against his better judgment raised his eyes to hers. They were so blue, they nearly did turn him to stone. He couldn't look away. The color reminded him of a flower his mother had grown before she stopped gardening, but he couldn't remember the name. Stop staring at me like that, I don't fuck guys. Jack started to open his mouth, but nothing made its way out. He had never had to come up with a response to something like that before. As he looked towards the other end of the table for some normal conversation, he heard Johnny tell Kat to behave. She told him where he could stuff that request. Hey, I'm Del. He reached out and shook Jack's hand. Jack. Nice to meet you. That's Debbie, Del said as he pointed to the bun. She does fuck guys. Lots of guys. Debbie smacked him in the arm, but he just laughed. Jack didn't know how a group of strangers could be so good at making him speechless. None of them had filters. He wondered if everyone in Brooklyn was like them, with a lack of regard for appropriate conversation. Kat was the worst offender. One minute she was talking about punching nuns, and the next how she didn't have sex with guys. Jack had no idea what to expect from her. How was he supposed to carry on a conversation when she said things that were so hard to respond to? Unfortunately, he didn't know how to respond to Del either, so he turned back to Johnny and Kat. So, Kat, if you don't mind me asking, what were you protesting? Kat narrowed her eyes at him. There were a bunch of these Bible-thumping zealots protesting gay marriage in Manhattan, so a bunch of people who don't think gay marriage is a sign of the apocalypse went to counter-protest. Kat doesn't understand that protests generally don't involve fists, Johnny added. Oh, bite me. The bitch got way too close to me and was yelling in my face that I was going to hell because I fuck girls. I warned her to back off, but instead of listening, she nudged me with her sign. So I decked her. How did she know you like girls? Jack asked. He assumed that I don't fuck guys wasn't her opening line, but then again it wouldn't have surprised him much if it were. You ask a lot of questions. Sorry. Whatever. She knew because I was wearing a shirt that had the words, I eat, with a little kitten underneath. Oh, well, that's, clever, Jack told her, afraid to say otherwise. I think it's a bit boisterous, but the guys at the station seem to get a kick out of it, Johnny said. Kat stuck her middle finger up at him. That's nice, Kat. I'll remember that the next time you need me to bail you out, he told her with a grin. So what's going to happen to you now? Jack asked. Yeah, isn't that like assault or something? Debbie piped in. Jack looked at her and smiled. He liked the way she wore her hair and her hazel green eyes, which looked a little glazed over. He wondered how old she was. None's not pressing charges. She said God has a much worse fate than me for prison. Which is great for me, since I don't believe in that shit anyway. Jack looked at Jack. Got any more questions?